The next little bit, first thing I want to make note of is that something that's known as incomplete dominance is not the same thing as codominance. Before you saw like dominant versus recessive trait, if you have at least one allele that's dominant, you're going to see that phenotype in the individual. This is now a little different. All right, so we're going to start off with the P1 generation. Right, and we're looking at incomplete dominance. I do this as an FYI, but it's so important to know this to see how we can distinguish this to codominance. So we have two flowers here, one that's homozygous for red, one is homozygous for white. You can also consider them as like pure breeding with their own genotype, right? So if you're constantly breeding homozygous red with homozygous red, you're only ever going to ever have homozygous red flowers. Now, if you go and you cross these two, what you're going to get is a flower that is pink, right? This is incomplete dominance. There's a combination of both alleles, right? One for red and one for white flowers. But instead of producing a flower that has a mixture of white and red petals, you actually have a blending phenotype, which makes it pink. If you do the Punnett square, you can see that there's a 50% chance that they're going to have pink colored flowers and then 25 each of the homozygous red and white. All right, this is important because if you compare this to codominance, alleles, so alleles that are codominant to each other. What this looks like now is if we're comparing a white feather to a black feathered chicken, okay, both alleles are going to be expressed. So if you look at their genotypes, they're homozygous, WW and BB. So big letters because they're codominant. So the heterozygous form is BW. And because the alleles are both being expressed, not one is masking the other one, right? You get a speckled color chicken, so it has both the white and the black feather colors in their phenotype. All right. Now, would you consider a calico cat to be one that is expressing or showing a codominance in fur color? No. So this scenario is a little different. Now, you don't need to know this, but I always get kids asking me, calico cats, that's codominance too, right? It is not. So this is a little bit different. This one results in the expression of the particular trait depending on where in the body those cells are. So in males, again, this is an X-linked trait, so one that's being carried on the X chromosome. Depending if the male has the X chromosome carrying the orange fur color, or the trait that expresses orange fur color, or again, the individual has the X chromosome expressing black fur color, that will result in the orange fur, the black fur cat. So again, not calico, not a mixture of both. For females, it's a little bit different. Something really strange can happen during the embryonic development. Now, this is not, they're not really sure what happens here, but remember, females have two X chromosomes. Now, they've seen that there's something that happens that results in something called a Barr body, so BARR, where one of the X chromosome becomes inactive. So it coils up really, really oddly, where it's no longer active, and those traits can no longer be, the DNA in it can no longer be expressed, right? So in that case, again, depending if the individual has the X the allele for black fur or orange fur, will result in black or fur. But this doesn't explain the calico cat. So in some females, what can also happen is patches of cells around the body, because they don't know which particular cells ends up resulting in the X chromosome that has the orange fur allele coiling up and becoming this Barr body, or whether it's the chromosome carrying the black fur that coils up, becomes this Barr body. And because of that, there's patches of colors on all of them, depending on which particular cells has only has the active chromosome carrying the X, or carrying the B, carrying the black fur allele or the orange fur allele. Okay, so that's how that's explained. Please don't worry about this. This is if you're curious.